Welcome back to another video. It's very rare that I get to do a video that I get to feature on all three of my main channels. The Grumpy Dad, which is normally a crypto channel, the Grumpy Dad Outdoors, and the Grumpy Dad Ham channel. And this one, Mesh, seems to kind of fall in between all three of them. I've had several people on my main Grumpy Dad channel, especially during lives, ask me about Meshtastic and Meshcore. And in fact, it's where I first heard about it, was when somebody on my live asked me if I was into it. Um, that kind of intrigued me a little bit. I then kind of looked into it. And then for those of y'all who know Fluffy from the Helium days, he is into a lot of ham stuff, POTA and different things like that. And he has kind of grabbed Meshtastic by the horns and has gone ape crazy over it. And while we were playing Call of Duty, he again reiterated the Meshtastic stuff. And I'm not going to do a deep dive in this video on Meshtastic and stuff like that. Me being in the emergency comms business and what I do for that, including around the state of Louisiana, I wanted it to go a little further than what Meshtastic was. And that's when I learned about Meshcore. Meshcore being 64 hops is kind of what we're looking for, the emergency comms, where here in Louisiana, we can eventually, once we get it built out, we can then go from New Orleans into Louisiana, going north of the lake into the Hammond and Covington, Slidell area, eventually into Washington Parish. If any of y'all are familiar with any of this, if not, I apologize. And also going further south of New Orleans also. And with Meshcore, we can do that. Now, this is not going to be a video on which version's better. They both have their pluses and minuses. I'll be the first to tell you that. I can't stand this gang war mentality, just like anything else. In the crypto world, you have people who love XRP and you have XRP haters. In ham, you have these very unique personalities where some people love DMR and some people feel that DMR is not real ham because you're using the internet to go and speak to somebody across the world. And some ham people don't like that. So you have, DMR versus all these other brand, Yezu and Fusion and all this stuff like that. ICOM's got their version. So you have these people who are then argue over which one they want to use. Even into DMR, you have some that want to fight over Brandmeister versus TGIF versus whatever new flavor of the week it is, Mark and different things like that. So here we have now in the mesh world, we have the same thing. You have people who get really butthurt and upset if Meshcore is mentioned in the Meshtastic Facebook or anything like that, and vice versa. You have people with Meshcore who get upset when people from Meshtastic don't want to switch to Meshcore. They both have their pluses and minuses. If you like local comms in your local area and you want to be able to speak to, especially if you're sending out a text in the general group, and you want to stay kind of in your city, in your area, Meshtastic is for you. If you want to try to push that message out to the other side of the state, or even if you're on the West Coast, possibly out the country into Canada, then Meshcore is it. And again, I'm not doing a super deep dive on this because we have some other things to talk about, but that is basically your difference. I started with Meshtastic by using what's called a client, and I put a client for Meshtastic in my backpack. I put one in my son's backpack last November. This was the first time I really got to use it. We went hunting in the woods in a place that is notorious for not having cell phone coverage. With that, we were about 700 to 800 yards away in the woods, thick wooded area, no cell phone service, and me and him were able directly radio to radio text back and forth the entire trip. In fact, he's 18 years old, and bears are protected in the area where we're at, black bears in Louisiana. And he's like texting me, Dad, I'm starting to walk slowly towards you. There's a black bear 80 yards in front of me. And I said, okay, I'm starting to walk towards you and we'll meet up in the middle. And that's what we did. If it was not for that Meshtastic, I would have never got any kind of message because we did not have cell phone service. Meshtastic has other programs that can run along with it, including ATAC, which a lot of search and rescue places, groups use, SWAT teams, and different things like that. So I have kind of incorporated that at work because I am the comms guy. I've had my SWAT teams ask about ATAC in the past, and that was kind of my way of getting us on board where I work at, on board with Meshtastic, and then also bringing in Meshcore as a communications um, use in case we need to speak outside the parish, which we have had issues with losing total communication before, at least 2 to 3 times in the past for hurricanes alone. Hurricane Isaac, Hurricane Ida, Hurricane Katrina. Our parish lost complete communications, no cell phone, no fiber. Fiber got cut, fiber got ripped up. We have overhead fibers in places that got damaged. And we had zero communication other than ham radio repeaters on towers. We're lucky that those towers did not come down because some did. So we want to have just another tool in the toolbox. That's all this is. I'm not saying Meshcore is going to replace ham. I'm not saying Meshtastic is going to replace anything. All I'm saying is if we have to, Meshcore is going to be there eventually to replace that. So that's my little spiel, a little bit on Meshcore, Meshtastic for right now. What I'm going to get in is I've had several people ask me how are we building our solar boxes, solar repeaters. And what's cool with those is I am kind of making contact with people who either owe me favors or whatever, or just I'm friends with. And it's a lot easier to ask them, hey, can I have some space on top of a building or on top of your tower for this box that's about this big, and it does not need power. It does not need network. It is a self-sufficient box that if I build it correctly, will go up there and you will never have to deal with it. I just need, 4 foot of space, 5 feet of vertical space, depending on the antenna. And that's it. I don't need, and then what I'm finding is you have people who are way more commandeering for that, way more accommodating, if that's the word, when you don't need to tap into that network and have to worry about network security. And you don't need to worry about power. How am I going to get power up here? Am I running another feed line, another, Ethernet wire up there? And you don't. And then we just have to get a tower climber. And that's the problem we kind of have. And now is we have several people with towers who are willing or want to get Meshcore on top of it. And we just don't have enough tower climbers. But that's a whole nother subject for another day. So on some boxes, I am putting both a Meshcore and Meshtastic repeater. Some people think that is blasphemy. Some people have technical reasons why they don't agree with it. Some people just don't like to run both. I run both. I have a node in my pickup truck running both Meshtastic, and I have another one running Meshcore. Because when you already have 4 antennas on top of your roof, what's 2 more? I will say Meshcore gets way more use where I am, but if you go into New Orleans, they've had a huge head start, and you can see way more traffic on Meshtastic. Meshcore was still in the process of building out. I was trying to find a map kind of. I thought I had a screenshot of what we looked at just 2 months ago, and just 2 months ago, we had hardly any Meshcore repeaters here. Last I counted on my tower that they could see, and this is not even including the Lafayette area, but in New Orleans to Baton Rouge area, we have probably 50, 60 repeaters, I think. Um, this is a program called PyMC that I'm running on top of one of the towers here. And this is basically everything that this tower has seen so far. And you can see I have only repeaters checked. But when you come down to this list right now, we have, this says 84. Now there are a couple of duplicates in here, I will tell you that, but majority of these are not, and these are also all put out by different people. I know they got some people with loud mouths that like to say this is only 2 or 3 people putting them out there, and no, I will 100% disagree with that. These are all several different people who are putting these out. This is also a cool program that I kind of get addicted watching. This is live mesh. Every one of these blue dots, about every one of these blue dots is a repeater. You do have a couple of room servers, and you do have a couple of companions that have showed up here. But basically, you can see how these are all bouncing around. We have some high repeaters here. This repeater is kind of in the middle of nowhere, so it's not blocked. And this repeater right here, which is only 40 foot off the ground, really bridges a lot of stuff from New Orleans here into Baton Rouge and vice versa. We recently just raised this repeater here to about 220 feet in just in the last 24 hours. and I'm starting to see more traffic from Baton Rouge kind of get bridged here and then into this tower right here, or you know, the other path. I'm very surprised. But this is also an 8-foot antenna, and again, that's a very rare antenna that I happen to get a special on. You don't need an 8-foot antenna, nothing like that. But even Baton Rouge, and there are several guys now in the Lafayette area, and that's part of our future plans is getting Lafayette now um into this region here and tying it in. But the problem is this is all swamp. This is all swamp, basically from Gross Tet right here into basically Pro Bridge. And there's nothing here. There's nobody here. Even if we wanted to, there's nobody here to offer us anything. You're not getting into this part. So I do know a couple of people with antennas and buildings and stuff up in here. And my hope is, again, this is down the line because I'm not going to sit there and pay for all these repeaters. We do some fundraising online, but we are slowly building out towards the south right here. And my hope is along Highway 90, we just continue to bridge. Well, eventually we'll meet up with some of these repeaters. They do have repeaters up in the Youngsville area. I believe it's maybe almost as far south as New Iberia. So really, we just have to concentrate on this end. I have a contact in Morgan City, so hopefully that'll be coming in soon. But I know we're getting way off topic, and this is Meshcore. Um, this is also Meshtastic. I will say Meshtastic has even more devices than what you see here. These are ones that I just hooked up through, I think it's MQTT or something like that, where you can kind of see internet and stuff. So, I have more than this in my area, and you can see New Orleans is really built out for the Meshtastic crew. Um, and again, they have more than this also. So I know I went way, way, way deeper than what I wanted, but for some of y'all, this is the first show hearing a Meshtastic and Meshcore. So I kind of wanted to give that kind of brief, if you call it brief, overview and everything. I will do some more videos and get more deep into it. But really what this is now, 10 minutes into the video, is how do I build my solar boxes? And again, I'm building two different types of boxes. I have also changed the ways I've made boxes. I've probably made 15 boxes so far. Every single one is a little bit different. I've learned and still trying to learn some of the intrigues in these boxes, and still running into a problem here or there, but we've also cured some problems. Now, listen, I'm going to tell y'all again, you're going to hear me say this 10 times in these videos when I make it. There are many different ways of building boxes. I have gotten most of my ideas off of YouTube with other people building solar boxes. There are different ways of mounting the solar. There's different ways of mounting um, the antenna ports and how to run the solar into the box and different things like that. I understand that. So keep your comments to yourself if you can say anything negative. Um, Again, I've watched many different videos. I don't agree with cutting big holes in the front of the box. I'm trying to keep them somewhat as sealed as possible in the middle and the top. Um, we have moisture issues down here. We are high humidity, and we have some very high swing temperatures going on. Yesterday alone, we were 80 something degrees during the day, and we had a cold front come through, and we were down just a few hours later in the 40s. We were 30 something this morning, and it got up to almost 70. All that weather changing is causing moisture inside of our boxes, and we have to really start putting drain holes in the bottom of our boxes. That's something you don't see in other boxes. I have tried to take a box and keep it as sealed as possible. The other day I went to it. When I opened it, I got water pouring out of it, and it was not coming from rain. There's no way. There was no holes, nothing on top of it to get through. So that goes to show you, depending on what boxes and how thick of a box you're using, what the material of the boxes that you're using, you're going to have some of these issues. So I'm lately have been putting 4 drill holes or small drill holes in each corner of the bottom of the box, along with some silica packets, just to try to keep some of this moisture out right now. But we're going to see what happens with that. So let's get into how I've been building these boxes, and I'll kind of cut in or, chirp in as I have to. All right, so y'all wanted to see how I make these boxes. And I kind of started one and I said, let me stop and go ahead and try to give y'all, you know, a quick video. And listen, there are many, many ways to skin this cat, as they say. Some people prefer to put a connector on top because then you have only a short wire inside that goes directly to the radio, which has the least amount of loss. What I have done lately is kind of abandon that and just put an LMR 400 jumper with a 90-degree on the bottom. So I'm putting this now on the bottom, but I'm using one of these connectors like this on the bottom with a 90 LMR 400. Yes, I'm using LMR 400 because I'm very worried about loss, but I am putting an LMR 400 with a 90 or something, you know, to get the antenna mounted. But this one I'm doing, and this layered antenna is going to go directly on top of here. So what I did is I took and I lined up the inside where this pipe's going to be, which is very hard with one hand, but right here where this pipe, the mounting pipe goes, is where I need to line up with the edge of this box, just like this, right? So not this flat plate, but the inside right here needs to line up with the edge of this plate, kind of like this, if you get my drift. And then what I do is I take a Sharpie and I draw a circle around where that connector is, which ends up looking like this. I then drill a hole into the top of the box like that, and then I place my connector on top like this. And then what I do then is I then take my Sharpie and draw 4 dots up here. Yes, my workbench is a mess, but that's why it's a workbench. So I'm putting, when it's aimed up, I'm putting 4 dots. Like I said, guys, there's many videos watching this on how to do it, but this is just how I'm doing it. I am then taking a very, very small drill bit, and I'm now going to drill those 4 holes on top, which now looks like this with the 4 holes, right? Because I use these little self-tapping screws to hold down that antenna bracket, but they still need a little bit of start. What do I do next? I'm then taking silicone and I am siliconing the hell out of this. I'm putting a circle around here. I'm shoving some in this hole. I'm trying to shove it in this hole, this hole, this hole, and this whole thing will be sealed with no matter what, which looks like this. So now when I place this, now one thing I do need to do is I have to clean out this hole because I don't want silicone inside this little connector. So I do need to clean this out a little bit. So now I got my hole cleaned out. So I'm making sure I put this in here without touching anything. This is like the old game of operation, like that. And now I'm gonna take my 4 tapping screws and I'm tapping and I'm screwing that connector in. And also what I do also is I only put the screw in about halfway so I can adjust it a little if I have to. All right, so as I was saying, I don't screw my screws all the way down until the end in case I have to try to adjust that base a little bit. Again, this is just something I found. And yes, that's a lot of silicone, but you know what? Silicone's cheap. All right, and here we go. So I took a screwdriver, made sure I tightened it down. Yes, it looks like this is a 3rd grader or 2nd grader with flu-like symptoms, but we have hurricanes. We have some very strong tropical systems that come through. I don't want this thing leaking no matter what. So if I have to have a little bit of silicone that's overlapping, I don't care. I'm even gonna look at the inside. If I don't have silicone coming through any of these holes, I'm gonna silicone the inside also just for the hell of it. All right, next, I know there are gonna be some people who get triggered by this, but I am making this a Meshcore and Meshtastic. Meshcore is more important to me. We're trying to go longer range. We're building a link from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. So that antenna, which is the better antenna, is going to go on top. But I am going to have a shorter antenna because we are running ATAC out here. And we have, it's just built out differently. I'm not going to explain it all. So we are going to run a Meshcore radio and a Meshtastic radio. I want this one because there's no screen with Wi-Fi, so I can put a Wi-Fi antenna on the bottom so I can do firmware updates over Wi-Fi. This one has the screen, it has Bluetooth on it, Bluetooth external antenna, Wi-Fi external antenna. I'm trying not to get too deep into all this stuff, but that's why I'm doing this. And so now I gotta put a Meshtastic antenna port on the bottom. So this is the same thing. I'm gonna put this right here, kind of higher up, and I'll show you why on the inside, why I'm putting it kind of higher up. And then I'm gonna take my magic Sharpie, wherever it is in this junk, and I'm going to, it's kind of actually where it's supposed to be. And I'm gonna take, and I'm going to, this is hard with one hand, just follow me, and I'm gonna trace around it, which is gonna look like this. I'm then gonna take my unibit and very carefully, the unibit has all these different measurements on it and stuff, and I'm going to unibit into this until most of my black is gone. So just remember a couple of things when doing this with this unibit. You can't add plastic back. So, and also because of the way it's tapered, the inside is not going to cut as evenly as the outside. We're going to have to cut from the inside also, but I use this kind of as a gauge when the black starts going away. I kind of just gauge it to see if this is even going to go in, and it's close, but I probably need to go one more notch. And that's, like I said, you can see that it's tapered, so I also need to try to cut this from the inside, kind of like this, which is a little awkward, but my drill fits almost perfectly in there. I think my camera flipped over, and I'm barely pressing it. I'm just trying to clean out from that inside until I know that this will fit perfectly. And it's still a little tight, so I need to go and just, I'm telling you, I'm doing this very gradual because you don't want to go too big or this thing's not going to fit. So now I got this, fits fine, and as you can see, there it is. Now I'm gonna make sure you can see also why you don't want to go too big, because even mine, even though it's taking my time, it is a tad big. Make sure that this gasket is fitting on there correctly, and then you're gonna take the little washer and nut and put it in right here. Now I'm not gonna silicone this, and I'll show you why in a second. All right, this is now secured inside. We're gonna go on to our next step. Now, one thing you do have to watch out for, because I'm so worried about making a video that I already messed up, is because the way that these come through, these screws, they have to be able to, this has to fit underneath that, and then has to go down. But now I'll put this in the way. So now I'm gonna have to take this back off. When I put my radios on here, I'm gonna have to take this off. This is why I didn't silicone it. And take it off so I can put this tray on. I'm gonna show you that. But we moved on to the next steps. All right, so next I'm taking a 15/64 drill bit. You have to watch because I learned again by experimenting that some drill bits are of course too big. And when I tried to do this other one, which is the next size up, it was too big for my Wi-Fi antenna. This is 15/64. I'm drilling at least 2 holes right now in both sides of this. I'm drilling one hole kind of somewhere right here for my solar panel cable, and I'm drilling one hole over here for my Wi-Fi antenna. Also, one more hint, the Wi-Fi antenna, you do not want it even with any part of this, because the Wi-Fi antenna, we're gonna fold off this way, and we don't want it hitting this feed line of this connector. So either you're gonna have to put it higher up here to flip it in between here, like this, or like this. Now you can't put it too far low because you have this tray that's going in there. So it can go about right here if you want. Now we have to orient the antenna like this or like this, but I don't want it this way because I don't want some bird trying to land on it. But you want the Wi-Fi signal to go down to the ground where you're trying to update Wi-Fi. So you don't want to orient the antenna like you would at home, because now this is going out and you need it to hit the ground. So, you know, I might try to put it like this, because if I orient it back a little bit, it's not the end of the world. So I'm probably gonna put it like this. Now another little trick, because I need it to be a slightly bigger than the drill bit, is I do kind of orient it around, you know, whatever you want to call it, wallow it out. But same thing even for this one, because the connector for this Wi-Fi antenna is a tad, just a hair bigger than the hole that is made with this drill bit. But like I said, the problem is that the next drill bit up that I have, this whole thing would fit through it. So y'all still can't fit it through like this. So I need to wallow it out a little bit more, if that's the word to use, widen it out a little bit. But again, my problem is my next bigger drill bit is way too big, and this drill bit is bigger than this whole nut at the end. So it would be too big. So I have to stay with the drill bit I have and just go, you know, just kind of clean it out a little bit. And it fits. Now, my solar panel wire is going to be plenty wide for this. I don't need to worry about that. And again, I'm going to explain to you why we make it a little bit bigger than we have to. Solar panels, I'm building them differently like I did before. Originally, I was using the little standoff arms that come with it, but the problem is that thing moves all over the place, and then 100-mile-an-hour winds in a hurricane, it ain't gonna last. The 10-watt solar panels I am now buying from Amazon have 2 mount holes in the back. So what I do is I measure these 2 holes, and I'm putting 2 holes right here, and I'll show you what I'm doing with them in a second. So I have measured what I need here, what I need here, and now I'm gonna drill my 2 holes and see how lucky I get. All right, my holes are drilled. I'll make sure that they're clean. I'm gonna make sure they're clean on both sides. And then I have a nut that goes in there, but I do have a washer and a lock washer, flat washer and lock washer that are gonna go in here. So these threads are not that deep in here. So as you can see, with my flat washer and a lock washer, there's just enough that comes out. I measured it, I did this before, and it fits just right. Now trust me when I tell you this, because I have screwed it up every time, is we're about to silicone the hell out of this thing, is put your first bolt on and see if your holes match, because it's 10 times harder when it's full of silicone. And as you can see, my hole is of course a tad off, which has been on every single build I've did yet. See, some YouTubers won't admit that kind of stuff. I can admit it. So I need to kind of try to wallow this hole a little higher so that I can get the other nut in. So now that I know both nuts will fit, I can go back and silicone. All right, so like you said, I go a little crazy with the silicone, but I don't care. I'll make like a figure 8 around here. I have it around here also. So when I put both these together, there should be stuff oozing everywhere. What I do like about this stuff is that it does not smell like your ordinary silicone. So it's made for kitchen and bath. It's not paintable, but it says it's waterproof. So with, you know, 10-year mold free, I don't know. But hey, it should work for what we're using it for. All right, my bolts are in. And as you can see, I even got silicone oozing out of the holes. So we good. And I got silicone oozing all out in between. So we are good on here. All right, so next, I mean, it doesn't really matter what order you do some of the stuff in. Next is gonna be our battery and what we're gonna go with both of these for these radios. Now, there's some, you know, people swear by one or the other one, and we have 2 different choices here. We can go with a cradle like this with some of these 18650s. I had a little issue with some of these yesterday where it actually burnt up in between, even though this is supposed to be a parallel, holder, and it says parallel on it. When I put a battery, I put one, 2, 3, and then put the last one in here. Nice little sparky spark came right here, flame, secret smoke came out, and it was a little crazy, as they say. So we have these other batteries that we can use. Because this is only going to a lower installed location that I can maintain and I don't have to worry about as much, we're gonna go with the battery that I personally like for nodes that don't have to go high up on a tower, that I can personally every now and then go and check. All right, so I'm gonna reiterate, this is how I'm doing it. Now, there will be people who make comments on which
can and will work, what won't work, and everything else like that, why you can't use it. I have issues with both batteries. I'll say that right now. I've heard horror stories about these batteries. I will tell you that I have accidentally already put a drill bit through one when I was drilling through the side of one, and I thought the battery was on the other side, and I went too far and actually drilled it. I thought I would be clear of it. Actually, I think I was drilling from underneath here and hit the battery on the side, and nothing happened. I didn't reuse it, don't get me wrong. I've also had where these have gotten soaking wet because one box, before I started putting silicone up here, I thought it was tight and it was filled with water almost from a bad storm. And some nice blue crap came out of it, but nothing really happened. Again, I threw that battery away. I'm building them differently now. I'm putting holes in the bottom to keep them dry, but just follow me. What I'm saying is, I have, when I use this one, I had the one the other day that basically caught fire almost. So despite some people swear by the 18650s, some people say the flat packs are fine. All the solar videos that I have seen so far are using these, and this is what I'm using. I have put at least 12 repeaters up already. 12 have these batteries. 12, when I go to them and check them occasionally, even when it's at night because the solar's not on, I have an 85 to 95% battery on these, even after a gloomy day. And that's running 2 different radios in here, especially since I went up to the 10-watt solar panel. I was using 6 watts, but people may be paranoid that can't keep this charged. I've had 2 different radios that have locked up. One was a rack. I don't use racks anymore. Actually, it's one of these, and it locked up, and it needs to constantly be reset. So now it's just on my desk as a souvenir. The other one, I'll say this: all my Meshtastics to this point have been racks. I did it separately just for some stupid reason. All my Meshtastics were racks, and all my Meshcores have been V4 boxes. Lately, I've had more and more problem with these racks. Plus, these have more power. So what I've started to do in my last 2 builds is, like I said, I put the screened version on Meshtastic, because this little connector on the bottom right here, this is doing Bluetooth on the screened versions, and on the screenless versions, that same connector on the bottom is doing Wi-Fi. So that explains it. Now, do you have to get the ones with these pins on it? No, not at all. In fact, it's going to make it a little more pain in the butt install. But Amazon has these for $22 or $23. You can get the ones with the pins on it right now in 2 days. 1 day, depending on where you're at. The screenless versions with no pins are taking close to 2 weeks to come in. That's the difference. So now you can sit here, I was told, and trim all these off of here. I ain't worried about it. So let's keep going. All right, so what I'm going to do is, the V4s have their own connectors that come with them. So I'm going to clip this off. And just to be safe, I'm clipping one at a time. I'm not going to clip them both together and short the battery out. This does have a BMS in it to control. So I'm going to cut the black one first, and then I'm going to cut the red one, and then we're going to solder these on. I got my trusty little soldering iron right here, and we're going to solder these on. Now, one thing I didn't explain either is technically you have to put 2 connectors on here because you have 2 radios. So we're soldering, whatever way you want to call it, we're going to solder 2 of those connectors onto that battery. And I'm going to do that now. Unfortunately, y'all can't watch me. I'm not the best solderer in the world, whatever you want to call it. Plus, I need both hands. And we are now soldered, whatever. Yeah. All right, so I now have my positive all soldered and my negatives all soldered. Well, what I will do with this for right now, until I can get around a heat shrink gun with heat shrink, is I'm just going to put a piece of electric tape over both of these. until I can finish this up later, because I don't have a heat gun or my heat shrink or any of that stuff with me here. But this is the battery. We're done with the battery now. Now we got to move on to the solar panel. We're basically doing the same thing. All right, so our solar panel comes with this long USB cable. All right, and it's got different adapters on it. This is so you can plug it into your cameras at home or other kind of devices and stuff like that. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna kind of measure like a decent sized loop here, and I'm gonna measure and put it in, you know, just kind of measure how much I probably need, something like this, and I'm gonna clip it kind of right here. So now we have this clipped. Now, one thing I want to tell you is, let me see if I can focus it, is you can see your wires in here. You have to be very carefully when you strip this, because these wires in here have very little jacket to them, and if you dig too deep, cut too deep into this, you're gonna cut your wires inside. Don't ask me how I know 7 times that I've did it. So you have to I barely cut this where it's not all the way through cut, and I kind of just pull until I eventually pop it off. And after much struggle, I now have it. So you can see how thin these wires are in here, where if you really cut through deep in here with a razor knife or something, you would cut the jacket on this, and then you would have to worry about the positive touching the negative and stuff like that. So now I'm going to strip these and do the same thing I did with the battery, solder on the connectors the same exact way. All right, one more little hit. Push the wire through before you start soldering. So I pushed the wire through, stripped it, and now it's like this. So now I'm going to take my 2 connectors and I'm going to strip each one and solder each one. All right, so we got all that done. I went and actually got one of the V4s with no bottom on it, no pins, I mean, because I want to show you how I'm installing these. So some people, what they say is, you know, they're worried about the top UFL or whatever it's called connector coming off of this. So what I do is, what some people do is they actually connect it and then they put a tab of super glue on here. And I'm gonna tell you why I don't like that. I don't like that because I've had a couple of these radios fail. They're $22 radios, can't expect much. Doesn't matter if it's rack or V4s. The problem is when you super glue it, you're gonna have to worry about cleaning all that off of there and getting that pulled off of there. So what I do is I brace it onto the bottom board. So I'll show you what I mean by that. Last but not least are the hinges. This is probably what I have the least amount of faith in for this box, but just to get it up there at first, I do use the hinges. And these hinges, I mean, not hinges, but brackets, not hinges, have these little Phillips Phillips screws in it, and you can see how short they are, and they go into the corners. I'm gonna install them real quick, and then I'll speak on it after that. This is something else I just got in that I haven't played with yet, but these are little breather vents, as you can see. But the problem is it's supposed to let a box breathe to prevent this moisture buildup, but somebody told me it's a one-way valve. I don't know if that's true or not, because somebody tried to pour water through it and the water wouldn't come out. So that kind of defeats the purpose. These were very cheap, but I might put this on my next build just to see how that works. Another thing I want to tell you is those batteries have a connector like this on it. If you're using a rack radio, all right, the rack radio, the batteries come with this backwards, the positive and the negative. So you have to go and take this little clips off. They have videos online of people doing that. You know, pry up each side of this and pull this wire out. You flip it and put it back. When you look at the rack clearly has red paint to tell you which side the red battery needs to go on. If you put it in backwards, you will let out the secret smoke, and when you let out the secret smoke, it don't work no more. So see how mine goes in there flush and perfectly? Be aware of that in case you're using a rack radio. I have burnt up a rack already because I would take the battery off to charge it. So I had to flip it back to charge it, and I would forget to flip it back again to put it back on here, because the chargers that come with the batteries are wired for the batteries originally how they came out the box, not like it is here. So just be aware of that. All right, here's another little hint I want to show y'all. I'm only using a small piece of this Scotch industrial strength extreme mounting tape. This is double stick tape. My first couple of builds, I was using this much of it. It is almost impossible without ripping off the battery, ripping out the battery, literally ripping this sheeting off the battery, if you have to get out and swap it for some reason. So I'm using smaller pieces, enough to keep it on there. But if I have to get this battery out, it's going to take a little bit of effort, but I can get it out with the smaller piece. All right, I ain't pleased with the way that this box came out. It's about to rain. I'm trying to rush, so I have not finished it all the way. We're about to get some bad rain, so I'm trying to hurry up and get this through. But I just wanted to show you how the solar panel, this thing wants to stay. The solar panel is hooked up in the solar panel of each board. The battery is hooked up into the battery of each board. I have the top antenna going to my Meshcore board. I have the bottom antenna going into there. It is very sloppy looking. I'm not saying it's not sloppy looking. I'm gonna clean it up some more. I just need to hurry up, and I wanted to hurry up and get a picture of it. I'm gonna do some more video of a lot cleaner box that I have to make for somebody with just one radio in it, but I just wanted to show you how we're doing the dual radios. So that's that. Let me go and get this box up before I get struck by lightning. All right, so this is the finishing thing of a single radio repeater that I built. The only thing that's not finished is I'm waiting on Amazon for some heat shrink tubing to come in. So that's why this is here at my house and not installed on the person's ham tower that this is going on. So I'm not comfortable with this, even though it's really not going to move. I'd rather just heat shrink it and clean it up a little bit. So you can see again the second grader booger snot, as I call it, silicone. It's got this sealed up. I do have some of these panels here, and I do, like I was saying before, I have a hole drilled in all four corners because we are battling humidity. Now, what I did realize is that, these are $22 or $25 boxes from Amazon here, and they are much thinner wall than what I'm using at work with the other camera boxes I'm using. The other camera boxes are using are much thicker, and I think what it is that also is preventing some of this, hot, cold, so the moisture is not building. But I'm telling you, I went almost every repeater I've gone to before I started adding these holes. This whole bottom area was filled with water. And again, my boxes that I'm making now don't even have connectors on top unless I really have to. What I have for this is I have some of these cables that I got made that have 90 degrees on them. So they go here and then they go up. If the antenna that they're going to mount is kind of even, well, it doesn't need a long cable to go up. And if it's a antenna that with the mount, it can't clear the back box, or it clears the back box, whatever you want to call it. Then I have this one, which is much longer, that again will fit the box. Now again, I'm using LMR 400 because I am very paranoid about loss. These are very weak radios. So really the differences between this, if I have two radios in here, I do try to separate these radios as much as possible. Also, there is a script for the Meshcore repeater about resetting the AGC .4 or something like that, because this radio will have issues occasionally with how often the Meshtastic one is talking, or at least I'm told. But if it's two radios, I'm definitely putting one antenna connector here, one antenna connector on top. On a tower install I did, I wanted the best possible scenario that I could come up with, that I could do. So I made two separate boxes. One is a Meshcore, the other one, complete separate box, is Meshtastic. Therefore, and I put both of those antenna ports on the bottom, so I don't have to worry about any kind of leaking between the heat and cold shrinkage and expanding or anything like that. Solar panels are now bolted on top. My original ones, I was putting those brackets on the front. I ain't doing that no more because the solar panel can move and stuff. I've seen a lot of people do that. I've even seen some people cut away a hole, so where you see like that solar panel has that part that goes in, they put that here. I don't want a big old hole there. I don't trust it, but it is what it is. Everybody's gonna, like I said, everybody's gonna have a different flavor of how they're doing these boxes. This is just how I'm doing my box. As soon as I get my stuff in this week from Amazon, I'm shrinking this, and this one's going up on the tower. Like I was telling you before, you can see how the antenna wire is connected to the back side of this V4. This V4 does not move because it's zip tied down. So I don't have to worry about super gluing this on here or anything like that because it's pinned against it. I have the Wi-Fi plug here. What I'll do is right before I install, I will try to kind of pry this underneath that zip tie and make sure that that one doesn't move, and I have them both plugged in. So this is my boxes. And that's what it looks like. And even though studies have shown, somebody did a study on it on one of the mesh discords, even having this solar panel, now I will make sure that this points south, but just because it's not angled up did not make that much difference in voltage. And I'm gonna tell you, I ain't gonna say half, but about a quarter of mine, about at least 4 or 5 of them, the panel is not even pointed south, and I still get a 90% battery on those. So I'll just sprinkle those in there, and that's my battery I wanted to show y'all, and that's it. So we'll see how it does. Again, I'll make sure this is tightened down and that the antenna basically stays like this so it's not hanging out the side. And I'm doing some antenna testing later. I want to see what the range is going to be on it. So stay tuned.
All right, so y'all got all that. Like I told y'all, there's many different ways of doing this, and look, I'm not the only person doing this. I'm not going to pretend like I am. There are many different videos on YouTube. Hey, look at all of them. That's what I did when I started. I mainly got most of my ideas from one video, but I'm gonna tell you, I took ideas from 2 or 3 other videos, and some are just things that worked for me and didn't work for me, and I've kind of altered them. When you look at my first box that I've made to where I am now, there's a lot of things different. And I'm sure that if I did an update video 6 months from now, there's gonna be more things different. Part of this is, I'm telling you, if I was only doing one repeater, say here on top of my house, and I wasn't doing it anywhere else, and I didn't have to worry about cost, I probably would even do a box differently. I would probably get a better outdoor box with thicker walls on it that wouldn't be as susceptible to the heat. But right now, we're doing boxes for about $120 a piece. That last one that you just saw, I built for a friend, and basically he paid me 120 cash for it, and that is strictly what I paid for everything to go into that box. I didn't make a penny off of it, and that's about what it cost. Maybe not include the jumper wires, the outdoor wires. But we're not done yet. One of the main things I want to make sure I hit on is your keys, repeater keys, whatever you want to call them, hex keys. I call them hex keys. But especially if you're doing it, if you're watching this video and you're part of our group in Louisiana, this is something that we are really trying to stay on top of. But also, we have been watching how the Northwest Pacific has built out, California has built out, and this is something that they have stayed on also. When you do a repeater, you need to really stay on top of these keys. So for those of y'all who are not familiar with them, I'm going to plug DJ Curvy right here. This is, he's in our group, and he has did way more videos than I have on this stuff. And he's taking this a step further. He's doing Meshcore repeater, room servers and stuff like that, which is way above me. He does a lot of Motorola stuff like I do. He's also into ham and to GMRS like I am. So we share a lot of common things. But one thing that he posted today, and again, I'm giving him props on this, is about changing your hex key or your prefix. And what you're going to see is, on the beginning of some of your, on your repeaters, the first 2 digits, this is 59, this is 8A, this is 10. And then what you do then is you're going to go over to repeater control, and repeater control is going to tell you, kind of which keys are open, and you're going to make sure that your repeater, whatever first 2 numbers is, we need to make sure that there's not a repeater already using that key. There are options on how to change that key. What I've been slowly starting to do is try to make sure a lot of mine are in the 50s, but we're out of 50 numbers now. And I'm using 5 with the letters. Um, and you can reserve it also if you want to get a particular number. I'm not going to get this deep into it. There's different types of commands you can do with this. If you sit here and you hit backslash along with, um, open, it will tell you which hexes are open, and you can make sure that you have one of those. Because what happens is if you're in our area, the repeater will have to be seen by my tower, which has my Pi MC on it. And then eventually it will add it to this list where you see right here, like there's a new repeater alert. There's a new repeater alert. And it puts it in the list. Again, I don't want to get too deep into this. I just want you to be aware of it because, again, some places, they are very, very limited on keys. And the reason you don't want to duplicate keys is because when you try to ping it, and it's I don't want to get this deep into it. So I will say, go back to, if you want, I will have Kirby's video, and you can see exactly how to switch this key. It is way easier than I was previously doing it. So I learned something from his video here. So I'm giving him a plug, and I'll have a link to this video in my description below. I'm finishing up. Look, I know this video was long. This is the same problem I have with every one of my videos I make is I have an idea, hey, and it's not going to be any longer than 15 minutes, and it ends up being an hour long. That's why I have chapters in it, so you can kind of, move around a little bit, and it should help you out. Some people who are already familiar with Meshcore, Meshtastic can skip and get straight to the repeater build part. Some people may want to watch that stuff. I was going to split it up, but then I felt that anybody who comes across strictly the repeater build might have questions, and that's why I just left the whole thing in here, and I'll let y'all, fumble around with it and do what y'all got to do. We are in the process of really trying to build this out. So I'm going to ask you that if you are watching this and you are in this South Louisiana area, I'm talking about anything from Mississippi, Pearl River, Picayune, that whole area right here, all the way through Lafayette. We're trying to build this thing as much as possible, and we need all the help we can get. Right now, we have just a couple of guys who have been funding all these repeaters, but yet people want to see it expanded more, and we need y'all's help if you plan on doing that. In the Discord, we have where you can even say adopt a repeater, and that's what this is for. Is as more people donate money to the person who runs this Discord, this meter fills up, and when the meter fills all the way up, you have now helped pay for an additional repeater. We have a list right now, and you can see this. We try to keep this updated, and you can see this in the Discord. It's usually in the pinned area or somewhere, but we have a list of places right now that has already given us approval for locations. Some of these places just need tower climbs. We're trying to line it up. I have somebody who can help us with some of that. But a lot of this is we need repeaters. It's not going to be fair for just 2 or 3 of us to have to sit there and pay for repeaters for all these places. So, in the Cajun country one you see on the bottom is going to be us slowly starting to build out the Houma, Raceland area, Thibodaux, Morgan City, and then going all the way up to Lafayette. And I haven't even started, we're looking for permission. If you know a place that might be able to get us on a tower, 100 feet, 150 feet, hey, we appreciate it. One thing also for a lot of these things is you buying a companion alone is not going to really help that much, because it's not even going to help you connect. Really, what the ideal way for this is you're going to want to buy a companion. And I know a lot of people, they're buying these WIO trackers. I've heard some very good things about them. They actually have a pretty decent price. You can actually even get them on Amazon. Some people swapping the antennas out for the Musi antenna. But you can have this with you. But if you want to be inside your house, like even here, I have kind of built my own. I had a little bitty box from one of the batteries. I put a radio in it, and I put an antenna on it, and that's kind of my companion. But even sitting in here in my house, I have to have a repeater right on the outside of my house to be able to hit the towers and all the coverage we have and stuff like that. And you're probably going to need that same thing. But every little repeater helps. So don't sit there and ask, hey, will putting a repeater at my house help? Yes, I'm telling you right now, it's going to help. I don't care where you're at. Lower coverage, I've had to start doing that in the region where we work at, is I had all these high towers, but on street side coverage, I'd had kind of issues every now and then in some streets connecting. So I had to go put repeaters down towards the street area with lower dB antennas to try to flood that lower area. You putting something at your house would help that. Now, again, I know I'm getting way deep into this, but I just, it's a couple of things that we are having, I don't want to say issues with, but just need help with. And some people don't really understand because they're new. Hey, I'm new to this. I've only been really deep into this for about 3 months now, 2.5, 3 months. And I'm learning all the time also. You want to be involved with both of them? You already got one box. You can add both radios to one box, like I just showed you in the video. So you can do Meshcore and Meshtastic and play around with both of them if you want. It's two different ways you can do it. Meshtastic is a little bit deeper because we got to talk about either client or client mute or repeater mode and TAC mode and stuff like that. And this is definitely not going to be the video for that. There's many different videos. Meshtastic has been around for a while, so there are many videos around that can show you that. Again, Meshcore, you can see the coverage we have already. This is just what my two towers so far. Of a tower here and a tower in this area and a tower in this area. And this is just what these two towers have seen so far. When you go to the actual Meshcore website, you can start seeing the amount of Meshcore repeaters that are out there and how much we haven't broken up. Again, you look right now, we have 63 in this region when we only had, I'm telling you, 4 or 5 in December. It shows you how much we're growing, how much effort we're putting into this. But again, we're going to need help. 11, and they got more in Baton Rouge than any of these other areas. But we know we got people in Mississippi that we eventually want to connect to. I put one out here by Fort McComb. If y'all know where Fort McComb is, it's an old fort from that you could barely tell it's a fort anymore. Hoping that eventually we can get this into the Slidell area, into the Gulf Bay St. Louis area. I'm working with a friend right now who's giving me permission to put one out here. The problem is this house really isn't that high. So while it would help this region, I don't know if it's gonna be high enough to even connect here. We really need to get somebody to help in here. As you can see, I can sit here and talk for another 30 minutes of this without drowning y'all out. I've talked before about how we're gonna try to build this area out. I also have my hunting lease that's up here. And my plan is eventually, my dream is to get this in my hunting lease area right here. It's going to take some building out. I'm not gonna say a lot here. We have a repeater going on a very, very high tower in the Washington Parish area. We have several people who give us permission in this general area also. So we are going to make it up that way. I have people in Kentwood asking about this. So you see how far this is going. And again, maybe I need to do a separate video because I'm taking way too long in this, but that's why this chapter's in here, and you can see how much I'm involved in this. On top of everything else I'm doing, crypto, 3 YouTube channels, regular work, and all this stuff like that. It's crazy life. But I'll do some more videos if y'all are interested in this kind of stuff. Again, this video will play on all 3 of my YouTube channels, because this can fit all 3 genres. From the crypto guys are interested in it, the outdoor stuff, because I am going to be using this more at the hunting lease. I'm hoping by next hunting season, we just finished hunting season, I got basically 9 months to build out. I have 9 months to build out towards Mississippi, but we need y'all's help. So, if y'all are in the area and y'all are in, make sure that y'all are in our Discord. If you which is the Louisiana Mesh community, and I'll have a link for this Discord if I can, in my description below. If you're in this area, please join and help us out and help us build out and stuff like that. And look, again, I'm gonna say this one more time. If you're in Meshtastic, you don't have to make this a gang thing. Look, I'm supporting Meshtastic also locally in my area because I have guys with the agency I work for who are playing with Meshtastic and using Meshtastic. So I locally have been putting up both repeaters where we need it. But once I get out of my parish, where I'm now paying for the stuff to go in different places, with Meshcore. So we've had several people who are leaving Meshtastic, coming to Meshcore because they want to be able to text out further. And some people just want to be locally, and Meshtastic just needs to work companion to companion. I understand that, and they're cool with just using Meshtastic. I'm all for it. This is not going to be one of those arguments. So that's it. Let me shut up. And I appreciate everybody who has supported the channel. I appreciate anybody. If you haven't subscribed to whatever channel you're watching this on, please subscribe. Please make sure you hit the like button before you leave, because it really helps support the channel. Thank y'all for watching, and see y'all next video.